G'day brewers, I'm here today with Justin from Pubs, and what are we doing? Tell us what we're brewing today.
Thanks for taking the time today, Simon. So today we're going to be brewing a recipe that won me gold in Nationals a couple of years ago. It is a wood-aged Russian Imperial Stout from the podcast Brulosophy.
Stay tuned. Alright, so let's talk recipes. So the grist, we're going to start off with 3.5 kilos of Pilsner malt, which will give a bit of a bready base malt, and spliced half-half with Maris, which will bring back a bit of biscuit and a bit more malt character. We'll then look at 1/2 kilo of Munich 2, which is going to give a bit more colour and add a bit more toast to the finished beer. Roasted barley, 1/2 kilo of that, and dark chocolate. I'm not convinced there's going to be much difference between roast barley and dark chocolate. Usually roast barley is a little bit darker, so a little bit more of that ashy character, but that's going to bring through those two grains, that kilo of roasted malt, we're going to get chocolate, coffee, and a little bit of ash out of that, which is important, that sort of roast astringency for your Imperial Stout. Cararoma, going to bring a bit of melanoidin, some caramel flavours. Flaked barley, give you a bit of a creamy mouthfeel. Same with the oats, again, a bit of a creamy sort of mouthfeel. And carafa, a bit more colour. A tiny bit of coffee character from that, but not as much as you would get from your dark coffee and your roast barley, which is going to do most of the heavy lifting. Now we're expecting an OG of 10.88. Do you think you'll hit that this time?
Well, today's brew, what I'm doing is what's referred to as a no sparge method. All that means is that I've put the total volume of water into the kettle, whereas sometimes you can reserve about a good third to half the amount of water and then pour it over the top once the actual mash is done. The only issue with that is some people will say that when you use this no sparge method, you end up with less efficiency. And what less efficiency means is that you might not hit those target numbers like Simon's talking about here. So with the OG being 1088, we might be looking at something like 1068, but we'll see at the end of the mash.
See what we end up with, yeah. So we were talking about an ABV of this beer for 9.27 according to the recipe. You said last time you overshot that anyway.
Yeah, so with the addition of the spirit that I had, as I was saying earlier on, it can bump up the total ABV by about 1%. I think I had a particularly good brew day last year, so between that and the addition of the spirit, I actually ended up with a beer that was sitting more around about 13% ABV. Obviously that's a lot higher than what I would have wanted, so what I did with last year's batch was I actually diluted half of that back to 10%. I mean, the bonus of that is that you end up with more beer, so it's not really that bad of a problem to have.
What a sad issue to have. So we'll talk about hop additions. Seem to have these 3 hops: East Kent Goldings, Fuggles and Columbus, and they put in at 3 different times, 90 minutes, 60 minutes, so both bittering additions, and then a 10-minute addition again of those 3 hops. You want to talk us through why those 3 hops and what each of them bring to the table?
So it's a Russian Imperial Stout, which is wood aged, and the hops that it uses here, as Simon was saying, is Columbus, EKG and Fuggles. So these additions, they do say if you look at a website called Beer Maverick, it will give you a very detailed description of all the different flavors that they can contribute to the beer. The ones that I personally pick up when drinking the beer is the Columbus gives it some nice earthy flavors. The EKG can give it a little bit of floral, and once again the Fuggle gives it some nice woody flavors, which pairs quite well with the bourbon addition and the oak cubes.
Because it's going to be subtle, right? It's not a big, bold presence, because we've got those bittering additions, which is going to burn off a lot of those hop volatile compounds. But then your 10-minute additions, 9 grams of each. So 3 9s are 27 grams of that hop mix and you're going to get a bit of character out of that. But it's not going to overwhelm the beer. It's still a malt-focused beer.
Yeah,
isn't it?
Which exactly is what you want from this beer. You want something that's a little bit more malt forward. And with this sort of beer too, you tend to let it sit and age for a bit longer. And as with other beers, the longer you age it, the less prominent the hop flavour will be at the end.
Yeast? What yeast are you using for this?
Yeah, yeast for this one is the Nottingham blend. So it's a English style blend, and I believe from memory it's generally used with ales. So it's a top fermenting yeast.
Yeah, it's a pretty vigorous fermenter, isn't it? Yeah, cool. So expecting a few esters out of that, being an English style, reasonably dry finish.
Yeah, you will get some.
Cool. What other adjuncts are you going to add to this beer?
Yep, so as we've seen earlier, we've got the American oak cubes, the vanilla beans, and the scotch. But I will also be adding in, I think it's roughly 700-ish grams of raw sugar. And that's done from memory days 3 through to 5. It's split up in 3 batches. And the rationale behind this is that you don't want all that sugar in there straight away, because it can make a little bit of a hostile environment for the yeast. So you want your yeast to be happy, because brewers make work, yeast makes beer. So we add that sugar in a little bit at a time, which gives the yeast a nice easy environment where it can eat that. Once it's gotten through the first batch, we'll then add the next batch, and then the next batch after that on the 3rd day. And lastly is some cacao nibs. So the cacao nibs will go into the oven for a good 10 to 15 minutes just to roast them off, and then they'll be added in as well, just to give it some nice chocolatey notes.
Yeah, cool. So there's a lot going on. So we're getting vanilla, we're getting this wood character, will probably give us a little bit of toast and maybe a bit of vanilla out of the wood as well, those vanillins. Cacao nibs. So there's a whole lot going on.
Yeah.
Excellent. Looking forward to tasting this one and seeing how it turns out.
Lovely. Stay tuned, guys.
Thank you.
Simon?
It's ready. It's ready to taste.
It is.
From Russia with love.
Yes, so this is a recipe that I actually pinched from a podcast called Brulosophy. It was originally designed by one of their contributors, Phil Russia, who started off as a listener, and he designed this recipe as a way to kind of prove his brewing chops, and ended up serving it at his wedding as well. So he has styled it as an Imperial Russian Stout. I have previously entered it into competition as a wood-aged style. So yeah, there's a fair bit going on with this one. I think there's about, at a glance, possibly 7 different malts that go into this one.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah, so they kind of threw the kitchen sink at this one.
Yeah. Well, let's taste it.
Yeah.
See what's well. Let's have a look first. Let's go through the process. So it's certainly dark brown. I think I can get hints of brown in there, but it's too dark. Can't see through it.
Yeah, it's always a little bit harder with these darker ones.
Yeah, a light tan head, and you can see the way it's sort of
the lacing,
but also the sort of, it's got a bit of a syrupy sort of. They say it's got legs, like it's got a bit of thickness to it, hasn't it? The actual beer itself, rather than the head and the lacing. All right. So on the nose, I get vanilla, coffee, and the bourbon character. Definitely.
Yeah.
Maybe some caramel in there, but it's hard for me to separate that from vanilla. Fair enough.
Yeah, definitely.
And it's got it really, that vanilla and that bourbon really gives it a you can't smell sweet, but it smells sweet. I'm expecting it to be sweet when I drink it, if that makes sense. Yeah, almost like marshmallows. All right, should we dive in?
Sounds good. I'm actually noticing on this tasting that one of the things that I wasn't happy about when I first tried it was that, as I was saying, with that change in the balance, it tasted a little bit more bitter to me this year. But that could have also been that the beer was a bit green when I first tried it, so just a little bit young. I'm actually not noticing that as much tonight, so it's actually tasting a little bit more balanced, which I'm quite happy with.
That's good. Look, there is a firm bitterness on the back end, but it's an Imperial Stout. That's what you want. You are meant to get all this flavour complexity, and then sweetness, and then, well, not sweetness exactly for an Imperial Stout, but that bitterness is important to dry it out, and to finish the beer off. And you also from the coffee of the roasted malt, you are going to get a bit. I think that accentuates the bitterness and the feeling on the back end, the dry feeling of it. Yeah. So I'm going to guess for ABV. I'm going to guess 7%, 7.5%.
Yeah, pretty close.
That'd be pretty close.
I think it came in about 8 to 8.5%.
Okay. Yeah.
So on the money.
Yeah, the mouthfeel is about that sort of, and it has got a soft. It's not as a big like Imperial Stout mouthfeel, but it has got this sort of silkiness to it, this sort of luxurious texture.
Something that kind of cloys for a little bit.
Yeah, it sits on your tongue nicely and coats that a little bit. Let's have a look. So on the tasting, I get hints of vanilla, certainly the bourbon flavour. I get coffee. Roast coffee, so not like Andy Schwartz beer. Yeah, it's a strong, assertive coffee, which is what you want for the style. Firm bitterness on the back end. What else do we get in there?
Got a little bit of chocolate, but for me, I could be a little bit biased because I also know everything that goes into this beer.
No, I do pick up the chocolate, and I wonder that might even add a little bit to the roastiness of it too. That because you roasted those
cacao nibs,
and so that might even add to the roasty perception in the back end too. Yeah, there's a lot going on. It's very nice. I think if you did bump up that malt presence, you did your sparge and all that instead of a full volume. Yeah, it would bring up that mouth feel. It would bring up that alcohol, and I think it would smooth it all out, bring up a bit of sweetness, and then it would sort of calm out that bitterness, give it a bit more to counteract, a bit more to stand up to the bitterness in the end.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree with that.
Yeah, but it is a lovely beer.
Oh, thank you.
It's very nice. Is there anything you'd like to change with it?
So it's actually a seasonal beer for me. So I do it once a year, and every year I mix up what sort of bourbon or whiskey that I use to give it that wood-edged flavour.
Yeah.
So instead of actually throwing the beer into a barrel, what I do is I soak some barrel chips or cubes in a particular bourbon of my choice, and then dump that into the beer. So that'll be one thing that I'll be looking at for next year is what bourbon I'll be putting in there.
Yeah, that'll be the change up.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, thank you very much. It's a great beer.
Thank you.
Thank you.